Welcome back. Nick Tempesta, Cloud Solutions Engineer for ScanSource. Thank you for joining us again for the on-demand compute conversation with Bob Buchanan, the EVP of Sales and Marketing for RapidScale, Andre Funslaus, Head of Channel at Cologix, and Alvaro Gonzalez, AVP of Partner Strategy and Enablement for TierPoint. We're going to really dive deeper into cloud compute, understanding the pulse today, and learning a little bit more about these companies and what they're seeing out there. So with that said, Andre, I'm going to ask you the first question, and again, Bob and Alvaro, please feel free to jump in. But we're seeing historic times today. During these times, what have you been able to solve or help solve with your clients, and why? Meaning COVID-19, obviously, and the work from home experience that everyone seems to be going through.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I think it's a great question, and this has come up a lot over the last 60, 90 days. I think there's two things that comes to mind for me, what we've solved for our customers. And I guess today, many of our customers have an employee-first mentality, which is great, as we have the same company models. However, our customers are important to us, and without them, we do not exist. And we're able to serve them by offering extensive remote hand support within our data centers. So when a customer has a need to perform certain tasks within the environment, we are able to deploy technicians to sites and will assist them in resolving any issues they may be encountering. We are able to do this as we have strict policies and procedures in place to avoid any personal interactions and to make sure that the data centers is safe for employees and on the odd occasion for their customers to come in. I think the second thing that comes to mind for me is it's been abundantly clear that some customers are prepared for remote work and others are not. The first issue that they usually the issue that comes up is bandwidth limitations. The need for remote working customers is having the ability for them to connect seamlessly and easily to their chosen cloud provider. We've been able to solve this by offering our clients access to our Cologix Access Marketplace. This solution is a portal, and customers can access this from anywhere in the world and can connect to their chosen cloud provider and have the ability to scale up or scale down their bandwidth as when they choose and require. I think this has been vital for most of our customers as they're uncertain where they're going to be in the next 12 months. We may continue with this remote work era. Some may return to work and act with the new normal, and others may go with another direction and go fully remote. So by having this flexibility, we've given our customers peace of mind.
All right. Bob, what have you been seeing? I mean, this is I feel like you probably have had a lot of conversations around COVID-19 and helping companies out with the new direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think in any sales organization that I've ever led, I'm always looking for a compelling event in any deal. I kind of consider COVID as disruptive and unfortunate it's been to society. It's been the compelling event for RapidScale. Our customers are looking to securely and efficiently mobilize a workforce that was within four walls of their buildings, and do so very, very quickly over our infrastructure. So for example, if you're an existing customer, maybe you had desktop services and a small population, which is actually quite common, a small population of your employee base, maybe it's 10, 15, 20% already has desktops, and maybe they're in a call center. And now you need to send everyone home. And we've had customers come and say, hey, I've got 200 desktops with you. I need 2,000 and I need them in 48 hours. Right? So that's the type of scenario that's very realistic. I keep thinking about if this were to happen what if this happened in 1995? What would we be doing? And today, we're on a Zoom call now. RapidScale is a big Microsoft CSP. Our Teams business and Office 365 business has just scaled tremendously. I'll admit that in January of this year, I was not a Teams power user. I've become myself pretty darn efficient at it, and I think our customers are doing the same thing. They're figuring out, hey, how do I adapt to what is looking like and more like a new normal? So the customers are scrambling. Some of them are in reactionary mode. Some of them were in better shape than others. But the new normal probably doesn't look like everyone's going to be working from home. I mean, but
Right.
I got to tell you, we're going to have most companies are going to have a strategy to work from home. Meaning, if this were to, when we get through this, what if it happens again? And you know what? Can I sustain this? I certainly don't know if I'd want to be in the commercial real estate business right now, because I think a lot of companies are saying, hey, we may not need all this office space. We've proven that we can do this. So that's the type of things and trends we're seeing.
Right. And Alvaro, I think we've had conversations in the past, and you're probably similar to Bob, but I think you like the idea of that strategy. Why don't you tell a little bit about TierPoint and what you guys are seeing or doing today in respects to that?
Okay, yeah, sure. No, I mean, to pick up to actually the great points that Andre and Bob were already making, I'd add on one thing where people found hard times in scaling because Andre got network, Bob got, for example, desktop as a service. Firewall and VPN capacity is another one where people really didn't scale very well. We cross over into this strategy conversation because I've been doing a lot of work on that. It's in my title, but it's also kind of the thing that I do. And the key about strategy, I think, that's relevant to the conversation is you'll find as many definitions of strategy as you ask people about it. There's a really great one, though, that I've been working with and I think that fits. And strategy is identifying what you're facing, identifying the risks that you're hedging against, identifying what you want to do about it, and then tracking specific actions to actually implement a coherent set of actions to hedge against that risk, right? So I think that, Bob, you kicked it off in saying that, will things be like this always? No, they won't always be like this after this. However, will we always now have a new understanding of potential risks that we didn't think about too
Absolutely.
hard before? Yes, we will, right? And so that's something that for TierPoint, we were happy and fortunate to be able to help with people scaling the network immediately, because that is what we do, scaling security capabilities on a dime, because that is what we do. Lots of people got in trouble because change management went out the window when they had to pivot all those workers to home, and they caused themselves lots of issues of either access or security or both. Going forward, I think that now, strategy is the result of the questions you're asking. People are going to ask different questions than they used to. And so we all can learn from it and we can all do better because of it. For us, that's really important.
Great. Yeah, right. Bob, obviously everyone, but Bob, what have you seen in terms of buying behaviors? I feel like 2-3 months ago, the buyer or the solution or the situation was a lot different than today. What are you seeing today, and what's really changed?
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't be surprised if the answer was any different from the other gentleman, but, late Q1 March, man, we saw, while many companies are being negatively impacted, was one of our record months. And a lot of that had to do with just scrambling, as I mentioned to you earlier, about consumption. If I put my sales hat on and I looked at top of funnel, and maybe our sales partners are seeing this as well, it said, hey, there might be not as many brand new opportunities that are coming into the funnel. And I think that's because COVID has been so dominant, but the opportunities the sales cycle is faster. And I think that has to do with the level of urgency that these organizations have to ensure that they can, maintain business continuance. And I think that's a term that I think we're going to be hearing more and more about. We thought about in terms of disaster recovery, which is still a very important part of the equation, because you're thinking about server and infrastructure and recovery. But business continuance and how to maintain, your standard business operations in time of unforeseen events like this is going to be very, very different. And I don't think it's just a sales conversation. I think it's in our psyche. Being in the space for quite some time, and I'm sure Alvaro can relate to this. And you think about the hurricane that comes into a regional impact, and people think, oh my gosh, you know what? If I don't have a disaster recovery or preparedness strategy, I better get one. And you know what the problem with that is? It's not only regionalized, as I mentioned, it's short-lived. It fades from our memory. This will not be. This is more on the equation of 9/11. It is going to change the way we think for a long time and the way we conduct business, and it's been very disruptive. The good news for us is that as sales partners and service providers, disruption creates opportunity.
Right, right. I feel like the conversations that I've had with IT executives, that they're thinking about different ways and how they approach it, especially in the call center space where they have to set up folks with desktops, and they're going to be making those, spread them out more so it's not jam-packed, and
Absolutely.
now more of a work from home. So, Alvaro or Andre, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, what are you seeing out there? What's changing for your perspective?
Mr. Buchanan over there put it right. The buyer's purchasing cycle has shortened drastically. And I think that's really because the need is imminent. They cannot wait an additional 24 hours or additional week because that's all affecting their continuity and affecting their day-to-day business. And our existing customer base, we've seen have grown with us exponentially just here in the last 90 days. The want and the need for them to ignite an extra 10 kilowatts or an extra megawatt of power to enable these additional solutions for them comes to us very quickly. And I mean, obviously we love it, but what gives us peace of mind is that once we're able to enable these larger hyperscalers that offer these public cloud solutions, at least the end user can get access to this much quicker. So buyer sales cycles have reduced drastically. And our existing customer base, I guess we've seen, are pleased to be within our data centers because they can ignite additional power and space very, very quickly for us.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, just let me put a bow on that, and I think that Bob, you started it, and it's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot too, and hearing in a lot of conversations with partners. People used to talk about business continuity and disaster recovery, just like jamming them together, BCDR.
Yeah.
I think that a number of us, and Bob, I'm actually, pleased to hear you say it because I've been thinking the same thing. And that is really, I think that we're pivoting now to talk about business continuity, like engineering for uptime, be it in physical layer in the data center, be it in voice applications, be it in cloud. But, I think we used to have lots of pounds of cure, but we're realizing that the ounces of prevention of going into it right to begin with are way more valuable, as it turns out. And that's what some of the things too, we also have had, especially the end of first quarter, we had this mad crush. We actually had our second consecutive best ever quarter in the company history. Part of it too was, I think, that because people saw that, oh, this looks like it's going to be pretty choppy water. And so if they had projects that they could get the money into before the money went somewhere else, people were running to do it. So I think that kind of came rushing in. There's going to be a retrenchment. That's why this strategy thing that we were talking about before is so important. You did what you had to do. The roof isn't on fire right now. Right. But how are you going to come back and not have the roof on fire again and do better? That's where that question has become so valuable going forward.
Right. It's funny, you hear about the companies that made the shift, and when folks went home, it was just, a switch, and everyone was up and running, where a lot of companies have struggled and still struggling. So I think there's a really big opportunity for our sales partners still to get out there and have these conversations. But with saying that, Alvaro and everyone, obviously, cloud compute in data center can be scary to a lot of folks that don't have these conversations. There's a lot of terms, acronyms that can be intimidating, and we constantly stopping you folks too, because there's new acronyms that come out daily. Yeah. What advice would you give someone that feels about that way, that wants to have that conversation with their client in terms of cloud compute?
So I'm a big story guy, and I would say that the principle is always take it to business level, because so many partners, I hear this all the time, are afraid they're going to say, let's talk about cloud. And the person across the desk is going to rear up and say, AWS is the cloud. What are you talking about? And they don't know what to say, right? It's always a business conversation. The story that a lot of people like is AWS is Amazon. Amazon started out as the cloudiest of all companies, right? it was a warehouse and they just sent stuff through the mail. Now, how often do you see an Amazon Prime truck outside your house? If you live in my house, it's almost every day because we're bored. But what happened? What happened was they took control over some parts of this thing and they did it for themselves as opposed to just having it all hyperscale. There's always a business conversation, and all of the acronyms, I would say, to say, let's not go down speeds and feeds. Let's talk about what it means to the business. And then I think that all of us here are pretty good at sell with to say, we have experts who do this for money. We should have a conversation, if you agree, to bring them together. And let's talk about this stuff so that we're not talking about acronyms, we're talking about outcomes, which is a heck of a lot more important. Giving people just that confidence to just say, look, we could talk about the EIEIO, or we could talk about making money with this and keeping your business running well, which is really what's important.
Right. So don't pull you down a rabbit hole. Keep it high level, understand the business reasons, and then bring folks like yourself in. Excellent. Anything to add, guys?
Yeah, you know what? I would say this. I'd say if you're going to get an opportunity to talk to a client, as I mentioned earlier, COVID presents an opportunity. And I wouldn't say that it presents an opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to be an ambulance chaser. It presents an opportunity to deepen the relationship with your customer. And if you give me that chance, I might start the conversation out with something like this. Like, how has this impacted your business? How did you respond? And what have you learned? And if you can get an audience to ask those questions, I'd be surprised if some type of opportunity doesn't present itself. It might not be in the near term, but you're going to have some really good dialogue.
Great 3 questions. Andre, I want to shift gears a little bit, geared towards Cologix here. And you have over 200 public and private cloud companies that you can easily connect to. Talk about how a client would take advantage of something like that in shifting their mentality to, migrating to cloud.
So yes, we have over 200 public and private cloud companies within our data centers. I guess I prefer to call it an ecosystem. As over and above these 200 cloud providers, we have an additional 1,800 customers, hundreds of different carriers. And I guess we began to see our customers are leveraging this ecosystem. And I guess what we refer to as they have choice. They have the ability to come in and choose their private or cloud SaaS provider, whatever it is within this ecosystem. And I guess we kind of spoke about it before, and we've begun to see customers deploying hybrid cloud solutions. They can kind of test out what works and what doesn't work for them. And I guess what we see is customers come in and deploy their own equipment, whether it's a Veeam solution, whether it's an Amazon Outpost solution. They always leverage a direct connect into one of these other public cloud providers, and thus creating a hybrid solution. I guess something else we started seeing how customers are enjoying this ecosystem is they've started to do business with each other. It's quite simple for them to do this as customers, whether it's a financial firm, a SaaS provider, a cloud provider, they are all within the same walls within this data center. In order to do business with each other, all they need to do is install one single fiber cross connect, and they have instant connection and have the ability to do business with each other right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's the connectivity piece, but to be able to be in your 4 walls and connect to all those different cloud providers and now connect to their, people that they do business, that's excellent. Excellent. So Bob, I want to talk a little bit about DaaS here. Since COVID has started, I've seen an uptick in desktop as a service conversations. RapidScale kind of came to market and has a huge focus on DaaS for a long time now. What has made you successful in providing desktop as a service in this space? And how would you kind of relay that information onto a sales partner in respects to having those conversations with their clients?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, it's accelerated our DAS business tremendously. We've been doing desktop for a decade, and I think that when desktop, VDI was, we to use that term interchangeably, VDI typically being the corporation doing it themselves, DAS being going to a third party provider like RapidScale. And I think early on, the marketplace was thinking that the desktop would be virtualized at the same rate server virtualization occurred, and that didn't happen. If so, all three of us might be in this deep, right? But we saw it as a niche for us and something we could be really good at. The marketplace started to say, hey, maybe this is more of an identity management type solution. Maybe it's for specialized groups within an organization. Security has always been a big driver, as well as enabling a remote workforce. So it's not every customer, needs DAS. Today, because of COVID, speaking the obvious, the work from home phenomenon and those strategies are in the business continuance, and all the things we've been discussing have accelerated our funnel and our rate of transaction in those areas. Why we're good at it, and why you should have some faith in us and confidence in us. And I just mentioned the longevity, but it's hard. And not to say that everything else is easy, but when you're focused on DAS, and I know the hyperscalers are really trying to get into this space, but here's where I think that they're going to struggle. You can't just the easy part's turning on the infrastructure. Hey, here's whether it's HDAS, whether it's Citrix, here's the compute environment. That's easy. We've over time become experts at making sure the application is tuned, and it takes some work, not only from a migration standpoint, but once you put that application in production and ensure the end user is going to have the right experience, that's very difficult work, and from a managed service standpoint, and that's where we excel. So we're always thinking about the expectations of the user, the performance of the application, and if the internet can't do that for us, and you don't have a private network, we also are pretty heavy in the SD-WAN space, and we leverage Velo pretty heavily, and we can create a very seamless experience. So if you're a sales partner out there and you're thinking, hey, what's this DAS thing all about, and why are these guys good? It's longevity, it's application expertise, and it's really the ability to think about it not just from compute, but also from the network side with SD-WAN.
Great, awesome. Alvaro, you mentioned BCDR, and a lot of companies out there have DRaaS, desktop, disaster recovery as a service solutions out there. Checkpoint does this a little bit differently. Talk about a little bit about how you folks are doing it, and also how people starting to realize that maybe we didn't have the proper plans in place, and we're seeing that now with COVID-19.
Okay. Yeah. So, I think that historically, one of the big challenges around disaster recovery was that it used to be 125% as expensive as production, because essentially you would either do 2 of everything and have to have it somewhere else and connect to it, and that was your DR strategy, or you would put everything to tape and you were extremely, extremely slow to be able to come back. There was kind of an initial phase where a lot of people still are, where there's a one-size-fits-all orchestrated kind of a solution. TierPoint has, for example, had a number of years now very favorable coverage from Gartner, from Forrester, and the Magic Quadrants and all this jazz around disaster recovery, because kind of the 800-pound gorilla for one of these things is Zerto, that the Zerto-based services that many people do. We're one of the largest service provider deployments in the world for them. But we also, for example, support several other tools, be they vCloud availability from VMware, Veeam Cloud Connect from Veeam, the ability also to support the native replication technologies in Nutanix, to be able to do SAN to SAN replication, or to handle all of these IBM workloads. Usually what's happened has been people would have siloed things, or just really kind of very clumsy, maybe is the best word for it, disaster recovery solutions, because few providers, practically none, could do all of these things, or they do it in a real blunt instrument way, whereas we can actually shape up the priority of the application to the infrastructure that it sets on and the expense that drags along with it. That for us has been a place where we've had a lot of great wins, and it's kind of picking up speed actually for us lately. It's been a great way to serve customers.
I can imagine, and that really goes back to what Andre was saying too about jumping into cloud. That that DR as a service is a great way to put your toe in the water and start to migrate workloads off of your own data center into cloud. So all good stuff. I want to thank you all for joining today's session for the Compute Go Remote Virtual Summit. If you want to learn more, please reach out to your SC, your channel manager. We can help. We're here to help. We want you to sell in more cloud compute. Let's get your clients off their data center and into one of these folks' managed service providers. So with that said, Andre, Bob, Alvaro, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, guys.